Hello and welcome again to Sutton Impact Family Style episode 192, the redux of James Harrison episode, or mini Steeler in the beginning. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And interesting times continue. A lot of college football games delayed this week.
Very many.
Were canceled. And, I still don't see the coaches on the sideline taking this thing seriously. I still see them pulling the mask down and start yelling and screaming. And that's when the spit comes and the virus and everything else. So I just don't get it. And every time I watch it, that's the one thing I'm drawn to. Seeing that and seeing the celebrations and, the Notre Dame celebration after that game and how crazy that was. I mean, people just aren't doing the right things.
No, and the New Orleans Saints got busted for their social media celebration after beating Tampa Bay last week too, maskless.
Yeah, I saw that.
And when I was at we went to pick up our food outside. It was an outside food truck, so you called your order ahead, and then you social distance. But a woman two in front of us did the pull down the mask to yell, "Is my order ready?" and then put the mask back up. Which again, it's like the coach's thing. It's like, no, that's not how masks. It seems like you should know how masks work. Like it seems simple.
I don't understand why people think that they can't understand you with the mask. The mask isn't that much of an inhibitor.
No.
And you have to repeat yourself once. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, watching this and talking now about, maybe pushing college football playoff back, which we said would happen. Like we said 2 months ago, that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So, you're just out of dates to make it up. So the Big Ten now wants to play, the Big 8 wants, Big 12 wants to play games on December 19th, which is the day that you're supposed to play your conference championship, so they can announce the next day that the college football playoff was. So, it's not a utopian world. I mean, you got to adapt on the fly.
Yeah, it almost.
Best case scenario, but the best case scenario is probably not going to happen.
No.
And you're probably going to have to. You and I talked offline. You're going to have 2 or 3, maybe even 4 scenarios, all ready and willing to go.
Yeah. And again, I mean, a college football team is, like 100 people per team minimum?
Yeah, at least 85.
Yeah. I mean, between coaches, trainers, medical staff, if you brought the minimum number of players you needed to compete, and, that would be unfortunate that some guys wouldn't get to be there. But, I mean, you just go down the list. There's so many people that it's not like the NBA bubble,
No. And so we talked a little bit offline, but I saw that Rick Pitino was saying that, and his team at Iona is already infected and they can't start playing and delayed and everything. So take this, there's maybe a little self-serving interest there.
Of course.
But also, players are going to come up for Thanksgiving.
And Christmas.
For Christmas. Is that really the right time to be playing basketball? Or should you wait until they're back, quarantine them for a week, 10 days, and then start your season? Which makes a lot more sense to me.
Makes a lot more sense to me.
Pitino's plan is, or what Pitino's advocating, and I guess a lot of people agree with it, but he's the only one that's been vocal about it, is he can start playing in January, and then March Madness would become May Madness. And I mean, again, it jams up the sports calendar, but I mean, that's just what you're going to have. 2021 is hopefully going to be better than 2020, but it's not going to be 2019. It's just going to be what it is.
Yeah. But when you look at, we have record number of cases breaking out all over the country, and we haven't even had our Thanksgiving break yet. And, the vaccine is still, optimistically 6 months away, give or take, if not longer. Like, his plan makes a lot of sense, self-serving or not.
Yeah, so, while I'm not a big Rick Pitino fan, I like this idea.
Yeah.
I think it's got a lot of merit. I think that, again, as we've talked offline, as we've talked numerous times on the show, college athletic departments, because they didn't play March Madness last year, so they missed a check. They haven't had attendance for football, so they missed a lot of checks. They're going to have a limited basketball season. That'll have an impact. And if they don't have March Madness, it would be devastating. So, as you and I talked offline, we definitely will have March Madness this year. Whether we'll have fans or not, I don't know. I probably don't think so. And it's probably going to be in a series of bubbles when what the NBA season was, and that's what it'll be. And we'll have to accept that. That's what it'll be. But one thing I mentioned about Patino also said that, you play a conference-only schedule in January, starting in January.
Yeah.
Which is normally what you have anyhow. So you miss some of those games, those tournaments in November, December. And the sad thing is the little schools that let them play big schools to get game check, that won't happen. And
No.
so that'll hurt those little schools, but it's hurt for exposure-wise too. But you just got to adapt. You got to do the things that are going to make sense for the times in which we're living.
Yeah. And again, if you had 4 regional bubbles, and if you adapted, like I said, if you adapted the NBA app where you could have fans, virtually watching from the stand, and you could, pop your head in there for a few minutes and you could be on TV. Between that, and I think what I would really like to see is, there's a lot of games where you're just tapping your phone. If at the end of the end of each half, if the fan bases were tapping, so if it's Kentucky versus Louisville, and whoever's tapping the most is getting, the defense call on defense, or you're getting the cheers when you score, like whichever fan base to try to engage the most people possible through the app. I think there's things like that you could do that maybe, make up some of the money somehow. You sponsor the app, you sponsor the tapping,
Yeah, do something.
The defensive chant is brought to you by Geico, and, whichever fan base is hitting the phone the most times. I mean, there's things you can do. You just have to,
Yeah, and we say all the time,
And then you feel more engaged as a fan,
Yeah. Well, necessity is the mother of invention. We better start inventing.
Yes.
Just at different times. Well, I guess this is the big week. Our big story this week will be the NBA draft.
Oh, I'm excited.
I am too. Are you any more convinced what's going to happen at the top?
I have no idea. It seems like everybody wants to trade, which makes it the most exciting draft and the most, potential disappointment when nothing happens. But I think you have multiple teams that want to trade. No real, this does seem like a Kawhi Leonard, Obi Iguodala, Giannis draft where the best players are going to come from somewhere in the middle. I don't have a lot of faith in Wiseman or Ball or Anthony Edwards, the top 3, prospects. I see them all being, at most 1 or 2 time All-Stars and sort of disappointments. So it's just hard to say. And then, you have a team like Golden State with that number 2 pick. And if they were able to drop back to the mid-first or, the mid to late lottery and pick up a player to help them now, plus their you have so many balances of power that could take place. And then you have the Nuggets and the Celtics trying to get a top 10 pick to flip to New Orleans to get Drew Holiday. And again, while Drew Holiday is, he's a first, second team defensive player and a, borderline all-star every single year. That's, balance of power could flip in so many places. Plus, what's Brooklyn going to do with all those players? Are they going to trade up? Are they going to trade somebody out? It's a very exciting season. And that's not even talking about the Rockets.
No. And we see Oklahoma City's shedding assets right now. Gallinari's a free agent. They're probably trading Dennis Schroeder. I think that's being official.
Yeah.
Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers for a 28th pick. So you got to think that maybe Steven Adams will join and see what's going to go on. But they're definitely in a massive rebuild, trying to figure out what they are. Rockets are, we don't have any idea what the Rockets are going to be.
No, and people have floated out some things too. The reason Russ got there is because James Harden wanted to play with Russ. And I know for Russ, it's tough going from being the guy with the ball in your hands to James Harden's running mate. And I think he did the best he could to adapt. And as much as we love Russ on this show, we realize he's 32 with a history of knee injuries and a ton of money left on his deal. But, some people are saying that, the Rockets were going to trade Russ anyway. That's why Russ's team leaked that he wants out. So it looks like he's the one doing the break. He's the breaker-upper, not the breakee. But then the other thing is maybe this is a Russ Harden, 2 good friends, with a plan to get them both out of Houston. Daryl Morey's gone. Mike D'Antoni's gone. You have an owner that's not considered to be one of the better owners as far as spending money in the league, who has shorted his team year after year. So maybe this is a, let's get everybody out. Let's both leave in some way. But we'll do it in a way where if Russ asks out, then James, from Houston's perspective, is less of a trader if he's like, well, this team has let me down. They traded Russ away. They traded everybody else away. So now I'm stuck. And you have Covington and PJ Tucker, both of whom won out in Houston as well. So that team's just in there.
We're gonna have some type of rebuild in Houston, and just don't know what kind of assets you're gonna have for your rebuild because you gave away a lot of your assets already.
Right, which is why I think you wouldn't get much for Russ because, like I said, he's all the baggage he brings from a contract year, age, health standpoint. But I think you get a king's ransom for Harden still. And I think if you're Houston, if you're thinking long term, like you want to be the 6th or 7th seed for the next 3 years with Harden as your best player, or do you want to just hit the reset button, try to get as many assets as you can right now, and hopefully reset yourself before a lot of those Oklahoma City picks come back to haunt you?
Well, 2 interesting rumors this week. One is James Harden to the Sixers for Ben Simmons.
Yeah, if I'm the Rockets, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'd want a little bit more. But, I think the problem with the Sixers is Joel Embiid doesn't want to get in shape. And what? I mean, you look at him, he's never been in shape his entire time he's been playing basketball. Every year, Shaq and Charles Barkley have long talks with him, both publicly and privately, about how you need to get in shape, and you're one of the best players in basketball. And he continually doesn't do it. And he's getting to that point where it's like, is the light bulb ever going to go off? Is he ever going to change his, his conditioning, his eating, his diet, all those things? And, I don't know if he is. And I think Ben Simmons, like I said, if I'm the Rockets, if you gave me a choice between those two, based on, no doubt when he is on his best and he wants to win, Joel Embiid is great. But he doesn't have the stamina at the end of the year, and he doesn't seem to be getting it, mentally, that he's going to come back in better shape ever. He keeps saying he is, and he never does. And I think Ben Simmons' lack of three-point shooting has turned him into this generation's Russ. We're a guy that does so many good things, but the media seems to have harped on this one thing. And if you built the team around Ben Simmons, where he's, your giant point guard that plays incredible defense, is an amazing passer, and, driver to the hole, put some shooters around him, I think that's a stud team.
Sure. Well, here's the other one I thought was, this one I was trying to figure out. There's a lot of rumor about Chris Paul going into the Suns.
Yeah.
I mean, the Suns definitely have a lot of money. They could definitely take that contract. But I just don't know why, for a team which is a non-playoff team, to play well in the bubble.
8-0 in the bubble.
But do you think they're that close that Chris Paul makes a difference? Or do you think it's a credibility trade? Do you think Chris Paul would do well there with that?
I think it's a combination of credibility, but I also think, Ayton missed a lot of that year with his PED suspension. But once he came back, they were a much better basketball team. I think Booker is your star out there, and there's rumblings that he's getting a little frustrated out there, that he wants to be in a win-now playoff sort of mode team. And I think if you traded Rubio and Kelly Oubre, although I do like Oubre, and that's all it took you to get Chris Paul, I think Chris Paul is clearly an upgrade over Rubio. And if Chris Paul was your point guard, you got DeAndre Ayton in his second year playing like he did from the time he got back from suspension on, plus Devin Booker. I mean, that's a playoff team for sure. I mean, I don't know if they're a championship contender. Probably not. But
let's talk a little bit about the Knicks, like we were talking about, a team that hasn't given their fans anything.
No.
Hasn't had a good story, and there's a lot of players out there that could make the Knicks a story, right?
Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I mean, either one of those guys, you're probably your ceiling is probably a 6 seed, and you're at least hoping you don't fall out of the playoffs if you have one of those two guys. But I also feel like if you are the Knicks right now, and you're looking at your roster, I mean, you'd like to give R.J. Barrett another year to develop, probably, because he was the best player coming into that college year. But Kevin Knox seems to have been disappointing. Frankie Smokes is should probably be like the 7th or 8th man coming in to be your defensive specialist in crunch time. And then Mitchell Robinson is probably your best asset, and he was like a flyer second-round pick you got. So, I don't even know what you have at this point for the Knicks. But it would be exciting if you're a Knicks fan, I think. be it Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul, if you have one of the top stars in the league in a Knicks uniform playing Madison Square Garden, and as we talked offline, like part of this is, rebuilding the reputation of the Knicks. You're always going to have James Dolan, unfortunately, that can't be unwritten. But you've got a new front office, new head coach, new GM. This could be your chance to sort of, show that you can be the team, the team that players are going to want to go to again.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly biased, I'm sure, but I don't feel like the Knicks are that far away from being a destination again.
I think a lot of people would love to play in the Garden. There's a lot of people that would love to play in New York. There's a lot of opportunities to go and be a player in New York.
Yes.
It's just a question, is, do you believe in Dolan? Do you believe in this new team? But yeah, that's what it comes down to.
And I still think, the one misstep I think this front office already took is, we talked about it last week, like, I don't think Thibodeau has proved that he's the kind of guy you want to have as a coach of your basketball team.
No.
Unless you're going to build a team of dorks from Oklahoma City that are just all defensive studs, and you're going to resurrect, Joaquin, Noah again somehow, find another, like, you can't run a team into the ground playing all those minutes and expect them to play in an old-fashioned defense that really doesn't work as much in the new spread-out three-point offense. And I think obviously a coach is the way you attract people. So whether it seems like people love Ty Lue.
Yeah.
I don't know why he wasn't the guy they tried to bring into New York.
Well, let's switch gears and go NFL now.
Okay. I guess we're wrong about the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Saints.
Boy, that was a butt kicking. They exposed that offensive line played really, really well going into that game, and the Saints just ate that offensive line alive.
Yeah.
The one thing I find really, really interesting is that Bruce Arians isn't hesitant to throw Brady under the bus.
No.
I'm really seeing that a lot. Looking at Tampa and Brady Piper, he should have done this, he missed this pass, you made a bad read there, he should have thrown here. You don't hear that usually from your coach in the media.
No.
You might hear it in the meeting room, but you don't hear it in the media. But I've seen that being a real story now.
I wonder if this is like, I'm almost thinking, because he's already had to eat his words a number of times. Bruce Arians had the famous quote about Antonio Brown. He basically said he would never coach him. I'm sure Tom Brady I'm sure that wasn't a Bruce Arians decision to bring in Antonio Brown. I'm sure that was a Tom Brady and the owner's kind of decision. And maybe this is a little bit of backlash for that. If I'm just,
He might have got Byron Leftwich involved in that. Byron Leftwich might have come out and supported Antonio Brown when Brady asked for him.
That's true.
Brady initiated it, and I don't care what anybody says. That happened.
And Bruce Arians had to answer questions for 2 days about, you said this. Here's your tweet. Here's your statement. And it's like, yeah. Which I'm sure, coaches have pretty big egos. I'm sure he did not like being called out on what he did say and what he didn't say. And,
that's one story. Two is the Seattle defense.
Did they have one?
Yeah, that's the question. So, we'll have to see what happens with the Rams and the Seahawks today. That will be an interesting game.
Well, I think if your defense is bad, Jared Goff is one way to get right again. I don't think that guy's a very good football player.
We'll see. We'll see if he can throw on that team.
Yeah. They have a lot of talent on that Rams team, so I'm sure he probably could still throw on them a little bit. But
again, I don't know if it's just 2020, but a lot of criticism that you're hearing now. There's a lot of media outlets. Let's not back away from that. You've always got to get ratings. You've always got to get viewers. But I watched a debate the other day on the NFL Network saying that if Kyler Murray was the quarterback of the Ravens, they would be the best team. And you wouldn't have to change your offense to support Lamar Jackson because Kyler Murray is much more versatile of a quarterback.
Now, we had a smaller sample size of Kyler Murray, obviously, but I can't say I disagree. Kyler Murray's awesome. And I think he might be a better runner than Lamar Jackson, surprisingly.
Well, he's pretty quick.
He's
He can change directions pretty damn quick.
And it seems like he is better at reading defenses and making more throws than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I would say that. I would agree with that.
I mean, I know as a Steeler fan, I would be more terrified of playing a Kyler Murray team than Lamar Jackson team. And that's not to talk. I mean, I still think Lamar Jackson's, somewhere in the range. But I mean, I must admit, like, now with this small sample size, if you're starting a franchise with under 30 quarterbacks, obviously Mahomes is number one on any list, under 30, over 30, whatever. But I'm not sure where Lamar would come in. And I, having watched a little bit of college football this year, I'm not sure if, you threw in, the Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, if I might not just roll the dice with him over him as well.
Okay, we know that Trevor Lawrence probably doesn't want to play for the Jets, right?
I don't think anyone wants to play for the Jets.
All right. So, and this is another thing that's been debated around a lot, and I've got my own opinion on this, but I want to hear what you have to say. If you're the Cowboys and you draft Trevor Lawrence, you draft Trevor Lawrence, or do you keep Dak?
Honestly, if I'm the Cowboys right now, I would draft Trevor Lawrence, I would draft Justin Fields, and depending on my thoughts on the other 3 first-round picks, I mean, you just look at the economics of football.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go with this.
A quarterback on a rookie deal for 5 years is invaluable. Just invaluable.
Yes.
As opposed to paying Dak $40 million a year. And again, it's nothing.
Which hamstrings the rest of your team, especially in a year where the cap is either going to go down or be flat.
Yeah, and you're looking at if you're the Cowboys, it sounds like the first it's Trevor Lawrence, and then the very next category is Justin Fields, and then you got the BYU kid, you got the South Dakota State Trey Lance, who people still really like, you got Mack from Alabama, Trask looks awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a potential for 6 first-round quarterbacks, and if I can grow with a rookie quarterback and I get those 5 years of him on that rookie deal, I mean. That's what Seattle did. That's what the Chiefs are doing currently. Like, you can't. It's the economics of football. You put all that money in one player. If he's not Patrick Mahomes, you need that money elsewhere.
Yeah. So I find that was pretty interesting. Although Jerry Jones said Dak is my quarterback, which, as we all know, that doesn't mean anything.
No, this guy's my coach. This guy's my quarterback. Like, it's worthless. But I mean, I wouldn't fault them for doing it. I'm not sure it's not the right football decision. I think if you thought the Cowboys, if you had even more success with Dak Prescott, but I mean, you weren't necessarily like a legitimate Super Bowl contender with him. You weren't the favorite, I'd let him go. I'd trade away from him. But I don't know if they're going to have that out. It seems like the Jets are going to have that first pick. And then it's really just does Trevor Lawrence really refuse to go there.
So I haven't watched any football yet today. I just switched to the Panthers and Buccaneers instead of golf.
And the Bucs are losing.
The Bucs are losing 14-10.
And then maybe not surprising news because that division is terrible, but the Giants are whooping up on Philly right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what? We haven't talked about the Steelers, but the Gilbert kid looked pretty good for Dallas.
He did.
But you know what? I remember when he played for Orlando and he's undefeated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he played well in the American League, whatever they called that league. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, and the surprising thing about him is when you look at certain guys that don't make the NFL, like, I'll give a Steeler reference because everybody loves his name. Like, when you watch Duck Hodges play football, he's got the moxie, and he throws the ball to the right spots. He just doesn't have the arm strength to make those throws. And that's usually where those guys end up, where it's like, he's got the skills, but it looks like Gilbert's got, you look recently, you got Kyle Allen played pretty well before he got his leg destroyed. Gardner Minshew looked like he showed some flashes. And then obviously Gilbert, you've seen a lot of guys that, the NFL just seems to have completely missed on. That have the physical and mental ability.
Yeah,
And I don't think we got to talk about Tua last week either. Now we're talking about young quarterbacks.
Let's talk about Tua.
I mean, that Dolphins team, we already talked about how much we love that coach and what he's put around them. And Tua looks, I mean, people forget, like, Tua was the number one quarterback before he got hurt.
Right.
He was the best quarterback we had seen in years. He was breaking all sorts of records. And that's what he looked like against Arizona and Kyler Murray, speaking of Kyler Murray. And they had a beautiful that was a fun shootout to watch.
It was. And I think we got another day from San Diego, Miami today.
Yeah.
So we get to see two of the rookies play against each other.
And again, Justin Herbert, who people thought might have been a bust when they took him that early, us
included.
He looks so good.
Yeah.
I mean, he throws an incredible deep ball.
That team is like, if you know they're winning in 3 minutes to go, you know they're going to lose.
And I was watching that at the end of that game, and I thought, I mean, as soon as they challenged that play, you could see, like, the guy did not catch the football. But, I mean, he threw a beautiful pass. He put the ball in a position to win on the last second. So.
No, I mean, he's really shown me a lot. I've been very impressed.
And again, it is funny because people have talked about this, but one of the knocks on him, and this is literally mentioned in some of the scouting reports, is he's a quiet guy who likes to read a lot. And sometimes you hear these things and it's like, is that really that bad of a quality to have? You know, likes to read. But I know you have this old school mentality that you need to live, breathe, and eat football, and, you know, there's nothing but football. But, you know, I think reading books and being a little quiet from time to time is not the worst thing to have.
Well, it looks like DJ's going to win the Masters because he's 19 under. And his closest competitor is, I think, 14 under. So we're running out of holes to go.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice lead.
Yep.
That's a pretty nice lead.
Entertainment, food. Let's go. What do you got?
I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this spot, but there's a Vietnamese sandwich company called Banh Mi Boys down here. And while I'm not a big fan of the sandwiches themselves, just because it's really not my flavor palette, they also make excellent wings. So, Banh Mi Boys. And they're on all the apps that they deliver. And they usually do a really good job of, like, some places I feel like you get better packaging and the food seems to arrive in a better state than other places. And they do a really good job. And they make it on the famous Dong Phan bread down here, which I think if you're from New Orleans, you know what that means. So.
Okay. I went to a place called Pasta di Guy. Pasta D-I-G-U-Y. The chef's name is Guy. And homemade pasta is called, I don't know what the Italian word is, but the translation is priest choker. And it's a long braided pasta. And it was amazing. And you pick your sauce, and then you pick your add-ons for your sauce. So, like Jason, I talked about flying in mind of some pasta in Amherst. But it was really, really good. And the portion was enormous. And so that was our trial for the week. I called up, I went up and picked it up, brought it up, and it was still in great shape. For my entertainment, I watched Secret Garden, Secret Window, which is a Stephen King novella starring Johnny Depp.
And Del Toro, or no, John Turturro.
John Turturro, yeah. And, you know, I remember really enjoying the story when I read it. But like so many Stephen King, it's hard to translate it to the film. But I thought it was decent. On a 1 to 10, I would give it probably between a 6.5 and a 7.
Yeah,
which means I don't regret watching it. It was, you know, you could see it coming, but I'd already read it, so.
Yeah, and there's just a couple things you feel like it was in the hands of a different director. Maybe they could have taken it a little bit further and been a better movie out of it, but they just didn't quite pull it off.
I always admire those ones where, you know, like the actor is on the screen so much time. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole movie's Johnny Depp.
That's true.
There's rarely a scene he's not in it, and that's a real demanding kind of event when that happens. And you know that better than I do, but.
Yeah. It is. It's fun though, so. And you get that part of it as well. Oh, and I guess since I didn't really have an entertainment moment this week, but now we can have our, since people that the show is pretty much done, we're just going to finish with our Steeler moment from last week. So we talked before the game last week. So if you don't want to hear our Steeler talk, please tune in next week. And again, like us, subscribe, all those good things. But the Steelers had their typical, we just played Baltimore. We're playing a terrible opponent next week. Letdown game, I would say. But
I talked about it all the time.
But they did end up, the positive is that's a game in the last few years they've always lost. And this one they came back and won. The defense made some plays. The offense obviously scored 28 points, basically almost all in the last, 2/3 of the game. So that's the improvement I think you'd like to see. And again, they came off a physical game against Tennessee and a very emotional, very physical, draining game against Baltimore, which just every year those two teams beat the crap out of each other, and they play again on Thanksgiving. And
okay, we finished the game today where Brett or Rossberg and a couple other guys couldn't practice this week.
Yeah, they got COVID.
And now you're going up against Joe Burrow. And
the good news is,
really well, the Bengals have actually played really, really well despite the record.
Yeah.
So another game, it could be a tough game.
I think, Jacksonville's occasionally feisty who they have next week. They got Baltimore on Thanksgiving. But as we said, if they have a shot at that 15-1, we get the first round bye, they've got to be undefeated going into that Baltimore game. So I feel like this is sort of a must-win today. And I feel like this is a game where they need to really, I know they just, Roethlisberger didn't practice, Vince Williams didn't practice, but I'd like to see them just dominate a team for 4 quarters. Like, you look at that Saints game last week, you look at some of the Chiefs' performances this week, some of the Packers' performances, and you just want to see them just take it to somebody. A team they should beat. It's a rookie quarterback. He's never seen their defense, never seen their guys, their blitzes. They have a roughed-up offensive line. There's no Joe Mixon. Like, this should be a team they should dominate defensively. And I'd like to see that offense just really click,
True.
I mean, we've talked many times.
I'd like to see them run the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
Which they've not been good at all.
No. And I think I know they've been giving Anthony McFarland a few more snaps here and there, but I feel like they do that disservice to him too, where they put him out there like once in the first half and give him the ball, and it's like, oh, that new guy's in, let's focus on him. But I'd like to see him get a few more snaps.
Yeah.
I think he's a little more. I think Benny Snell is nice as a backup, and I've heard a number of people on the NFL Network and a few other people say this too. Love James Conner the person, love James Conner the story. Not always impressed with James Conner, the running back. As a lead, is the guy that he's going to go out there, and dominate for you.
Right.
And I mean, again, James Conner is, he went to Pitt. He seems like an incredibly well-spoken, very nice young man. He overcame cancer. Like, he's everything you'd want to root for. But I don't know if he's special as far as a running back goes.
I would agree with you. And then the other story I think is really interesting this year is the invisibility of Jalen Samuels.
Yeah. Well, I think unless you're going to, I think Ebron.
Ray McLeod has eclipsed him.
Yeah, and then
his place as a receiver.
He and Ebron have taken those snaps, yeah. And then I think obviously Claypool developing as fast as he did. Juju Smith back healthy. I mean, there's just not a lot of room for him on the feet,
No. The business we have to say is we know McDonald's not playing today.
It's true. I mean, but I think that's one of the beauties of drafting Chase Claypool is you have a 6'4", 240-pound, because Vance McDonald isn't exactly the best blocker on the planet either. So I think you could, play a few more bunch sets. I mean, they love to bring that extra offensive lineman in the game to run block. Like I said, I'd like to see, I just like to see a nice, 4 or 5 sustained drives this game and just really get the offense really clicking, which is obviously tough when your quarterback was in COVID protocol all week. But
will you get to watch today?
As of right now, according to the app, yes, I will.
Okay.
Because the Saints also play at that time, and I think there's another game that's being blacked out as the second game for the first. I mean, The Steelers, I think, are 10.5-point favorites in Vegas. So
They're not going to win by 10.5.
no, but they should win by 14 if they're dominant. You know, that's what I want. Like I said, that's what I want to see. Just a dominant, blow the doors off that team.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, we'll be back next week, and we'll be able to go over the draft.
And the trades.
I'm sure it's going to be a great event. We're excited about it. And we'll watch some interesting football this week, and we'll be back ready to talk next week.